The fluorescent lights of the Kroger on Route 9 hummed the way they always did, indifferent and cold, the kind of light that makes everyone look a little tired. It was a Tuesday afternoon, nothing remarkable about it, the sort of day that passes without leaving a mark. But Marcus Webb was already marked by the desert, marked by the years, marked in ways that only other veterans could recognize by the slight way he held his shoulders, as if still bracing for something that never quite stopped coming. He moved slowly through the bread aisle, his left leg dragging just slightly, the result of a roadside bomb outside Fallujah that had taken 3 of his closest friends and left him with a Purple Heart he kept in a shoebox under his bed. Beside him walked Ranger, a 6-year-old Belgian Malinois with a sand-colored coat and dark, knowing eyes. Ranger wore a vest that read "Service Animal" in red letters, though Marcus always joked that Ranger deserved the rank of sergeant at least. The dog stayed close, not pulling, not wandering, just present, the way Ranger always was, which was the only reason Marcus left the apartment at all anymore. He picked up a loaf of whole wheat bread and placed it in the small basket hooked over his wrist. That was all he needed. That was all he had come for. He had counted the money that morning, folded the bills carefully on the kitchen counter, organized coins in a small pile. He knew exactly what he had, $4.12. The bread cost $7.98. He hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days, but he told himself bread would be enough. Bread would do. At the checkout, the cashier, a teenage girl named Brianna, who was 3 weeks into her first job, scanned the loaf and smiled. $7.98, she said cheerfully. Marcus set his money on the counter, the 4 bills, the coins, and began counting. The line behind him had 3 people. Nobody said anything at first. Then the counting stopped. He was short, $3.86 short. His jaw tightened. He had miscounted that morning. He had been so sure. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I thought I had enough." He reached to take the bread back, to tell her it was fine, that he'd figure something out, that she shouldn't worry, because that was what Marcus Webb did. He absorbed things. He made himself smaller so others wouldn't have to feel uncomfortable. He had been doing it since he came home, shrinking into the corners of rooms, apologizing for his cane, apologizing for Ranger, apologizing for simply existing in a world that had moved on without him. But Ranger did something then that nobody expected. The dog, who had been sitting calmly at Marcus's left side, suddenly stood. He turned, not toward the door, not toward Marcus, but toward the man standing directly behind them in line. Ranger sat down in front of him, looked up with complete earnest stillness, and placed one paw gently on the man's shoe. The man was Carl Dutton, 53, an electrician who had driven 40 minutes for a specific brand of coffee. He had been impatient. He had been on his phone. But when he looked down at that dog, and that steady, quiet, utterly sincere dog, something cracked open inside him. He didn't know why. He would tell his wife about it that night and still not be able to explain it. It was just a dog putting a paw on his foot. But it felt, he said later, like being recognized. Carl reached past Marcus, placed a $20 bill on the counter, and said, "For his bread. And keep the change for whatever else he needs?" His voice was rough, like he was trying not to make a big deal of it. He looked at Marcus for only a moment. "Thank you for your service," he said, but not the hollow way people sometimes said it, tossed out like a receipt. He said it like he meant the actual words, like he was actually thanking him, for something specific. For something real, Marcus stood very still. He was not a man who cried easily. He had not cried at the funerals. He had not cried in the hospital. But in that grocery store, under those cold, buzzing lights, with a loaf of bread in a plastic bag and his dog watching him with calm brown eyes, something moved through him that he could not stop. He pressed his lips together. He nodded once. He picked up the bread. On the way out, an older woman touched his arm and pressed a handwritten note into his hand. It had her name and number. She ran a veterans support group 2 miles away. She met his eyes and said nothing else. The automatic doors opened, and Marcus walked into the afternoon light, Ranger at his side. He sat in his truck for a long time before driving home. He read the note 3 times. He ate half the bread sitting right there in the parking lot, and he fed Ranger the last piece of crust, the way he always did. Then he pulled out his phone and typed the number into his contacts. He didn't call that day, but he called the next morning. And that, in the end, was the beginning.